Hi everybody, and welcome back to my Wargames hobby channel. Now today's video, there's two things I want to cover. The first thing is an update and what my plans are for the future, and the second one is about this challenge that people that have got their own channels called I'm a Wargamer, and a little video on that, so I'll do that as well. So firstly, about my channel. When I first started it, I had already been doing sort of videos for a different hobby that I play, a sport. I've been playing lawn bowls for many years, and I'm a qualified coach, and so I started doing videos on that. And when I started to do some wargaming videos, I put them all on the same channel, not realizing, idiot that I am, that you can have more than one channel on YouTube. So it didn't quite work out, because wargamers don't necessarily want to be told when I do a new lawn bowls channel, and vice versa. So what I had to do, because I couldn't transfer the wargames videos I'd done onto a new channel I've created just for wargames, I've had to delete them from the lawn bowls channel and put them on freshly onto the new Wargames channel. So this channel now, you'll be informed if you subscribe just when it's wargaming stuff that's produced and not anything else. So sorry about that, I just wasn't really clued up as to how these things worked, and I thought you could only have one channel, but of course you can have as many channels as you want, as long as you've got a different email address for each one. Now I know that, but I didn't at the time. So, as in future, any new Wargames related videos will just be on my Wargames hobby channel. At the moment, I've only really done some videos on the new rules, muskets and tomahawks, that I've been playing recently, since the COVID sort of started back in March and April. But I want to branch out a bit now, so I should be doing some other things as well. In fact, I've got my table laid out for a game that I should be doing based on the Rebels and Patriots rules. And I'm going to play an introductory game on how to play those rules, keeping to the basics, nothing too complicated. And I will do that with other rules that I'm sort of fairly familiar with over the next sort of few months. I'm not going to do a lot of videos. I'll probably try and do one a week if I can. It may be one a fortnight, we'll just see how it goes. Okay, the next part of this video is the I'm a Wargamer. Normally you get nominated for this by another person, on another Wargamer from another channel. But because I'm fairly new to this, no one's nominated me, so I'll just do it anyway. I don't think it really matters. So there's 4 questions I've got written down here. What got me into the hobby in the first place? Why did I start my own channel? Any tips for new people considering taking up wargames? And where do I see myself in sort of 5 to 10 years time with regards to the hobby? So the first one is, what got me into wargaming? Okay, I suppose it's various things in actual fact, not just one thing, but first of all, I come from a military sort of family. My father was a career soldier. He joined the army in 1946, just after the war finished, when he was 17 and a half. He was too young for World War II, obviously. And he started in the Royal West Kent Regiment for a year, and then he transferred to the Parachute Regiment, which is an elite fighting force, as I'm sure most of you will know. You've probably got para figures somewhere in your bolt action or any other World War II rules. So he was in the Parachute Regiment for the remainder of his military career. He jumped in Suez in 1956. He served in Aden and Cyprus and various other locations. And he started a private soldier and ended up with the rank of major, so he did pretty well. He also was awarded the MBE for his services to the armed forces. So coming from a military background, always surrounded with soldiers and living in Aldershot, which is the home of the British Army, there's obviously been an interest there in all army things with me. As it happens, my grandfather was also a regular soldier, and he joined the army in 1909 and was a corporal when World War One broke out. In fact, his regiment was based in India just before the war, where he served for two years. And then he was shipped back to England just as the war broke out, and he was shipped across to France in I think it was November, early October or November 1914, and he was promptly badly wounded at the Battle of Mons in 1914. He was injured badly by shrapnel all down his right hand side of his body and his arm, and he lost 2 fingers on his right hand, so he wasn't able to serve in the front line. Probably saved his life in actual fact, but anyway, he was a training sergeant for the rest of the war, mainly based back in England. So yeah, a military background which made me interested in military history and in all sorts of history, in fact. So when I was very young, probably just 8 or 9 years old, I had 2 brothers who were older than me, and we used to start getting given to us for Christmas or birthdays toy soldiers, you know, the Britain's ones or the Swap-its. Do you remember the Swap-its? And we used to line these up and play all sorts of games on the floor or on the dining table, either using the little cannons that you put matchsticks in and shoot off matchsticks to try and knock them over, or we'd throw things at the soldiers and all sorts of various things. They also were keen collectors, my 2 brothers, of cigarette cards. And we devised a really, really good game of getting all the ones with red jackets, obviously British, or ones with a red top anyway, against all the others, various colours, and fighting battles. And we'd flick the cards over, and if they landed up still facing in the right direction, they were alive, and if they were obviously reversed, they were dead. So we played all these sort of games over many years when we were youngsters. So that was sort of some sort of very basic wargaming, I suppose. When they both, in fact, left and joined the army, I was left on my own, and I continued playing for a bit longer, until, in fact, myself, I joined the army in 1966 as a boy soldier. Joined the Junior Leaders Regiment Royal Artillery, based in Nuneaton. I wasn't in long though. I just didn't like it, to be honest. It just didn't suit me. I think I was expected to join up, being from a military background, and I gave it a try, but it just didn't do it for me, and I couldn't see myself wanting to make a career out of it. And it came to a point after 6 months of being in boy service, which I did enjoy to a degree, but there came a point where you had to make up your mind you're either going to stay in the army for the remainder of the boy service, which was about another 18 months, and then do 6 years as a regular. And I just didn't want to commit to that sort of thing at that age. I was a bit of a rebel, I suppose, and I wanted to do other things. So I bought myself out of the army and started working. And I met my wife, and we got married. And up until then, I hadn't really done much on wargaming since I'd left the army. But once I got married and settled down, and I had a massive mortgage, and we couldn't afford to have children too young, so I needed a hobby which was going to be cheap. And I was looking through my local newspaper and spotted the North Farnborough Wargame Society, that's what it was called then, that met at the local community centre. So I popped round there one evening, a Friday evening when we used to meet, and I was hooked straight away. I thought, this is absolutely brilliant. A good friend of mine, Mick Fuller, took me under his wing. He was I don't know whether he was president then, but he was the founder of the club anyway. And he took me under his wing, and I started playing. What we were doing at the time was 25mm English Civil War, and in fact that's the first army I painted, which I've still got now, some 25mm minifigs. But because I didn't know much about the regiments and the colours, I didn't really know what I was doing, to be perfectly honest. So I painted these units up. I bought the sort of the royalist looking ones, but I made the mistake of giving them orange sashes and colours. Green coats, but with orange sashes. And Mick was horrified when he saw this. He said, "You can't do that. That's a parliamentarian colour. You've got to repaint them with red and make them royalist," which I promptly did. And anyway, I then started to realise that you've got to do your research. You can't just paint up anything. So from then on, I tried a bit hard to make sure that I painted things the right colours. Over the years, yeah, I mean, that was back in that's the early 70s, 1972, 73, around that time. And since then, I have painted thousands of figures. I'm not a brilliant painter. I'm not even a good painter. I'm an average painter, maybe above average, but that's all. I wish I could paint better than I do, and some of the members of the club just paint. They take my breath away when I look at some of the paint jobs they do on figures, and I could never reach that standard because I used to rush them and get them done as soon as possible to use them, and I just didn't have that ability, whereas some of the guys seem to find it easy to paint fantastic figures. But mine are okay. They're what I call an acceptable war game standard. I started doing a lot of 15mm as well, because we started to do big battles, and most big battles are better off or cheaper to do in 15mm. So even now I've still got a huge French and Russian Napoleonic army. I never did British because there were plenty of other people that did those. And I've done sort of 15mm Renaissance, I've done ancient various armies. At one point, some years ago now, I had about 10,000 figures of various periods, and which was ridiculous really. So I had a bit of a sale and got rid of a load of them. Some of which I regret now selling, but there we are. I just didn't have the room to have all those figures. So I sold a few, and of course often I used to sell figures to enable me to get money to get into another period or another scale. I think we've all done that. I think currently, I don't know how many I've got now, I haven't counted them recently, but it's probably not, certainly not 10,000, it's probably about half that. It's still quite a few, surprising. The rules that I do now, I got really into skirmish rules actually in the last sort of year or 18 months. So I'll play quite a bit of sharp practice, and I've got into Muskets and Tomahawks, the new version, Volume 2, which I really like. I think they're a lovely set of rules. They're not too complicated. I can't do complicated rules anymore. It just does my head in. So I try and find something that gives fairly good, historically accurate games without being, silly. And Muskets and Tomahawks do that for me. I mentioned I also play the Rebels and Patriots, which it's not really a skirmish. It's a bigger scale than that. I quite like them actually. They're what I would call quite a simple set of rules to learn. Some people don't like them because they're too simple. There's things in there that don't quite work, they feel, and all right, there's a few things maybe that could be different, but you can always do house rules if you in any set of rules you play. You can always do house rules to adjust it to, as long as you all agree to do that, of course, to make it work better. I've done a couple of house rules with these, and they seem to help quite a bit. But I say I quite like them. A couple of guys at the club do as well. A couple of others feel they're too simple, but I think for an evening game you don't want a complicated set of rules where you're only going to do 2 or 3 moves of an evening and then spend half the evening with your head in a book trying to find the answers to questions. That to me isn't fun at all. I like to set the table out and have a game. In fact, I've set out the table now to do this game on Rebels and Patriots. I'll show you it now. There we are, there's the game set out. I've got the British on this side, going across the table there. I've got the American Continentals on the other side. So I'll be doing that game over the next sort of week, and I'll video it. So what advice would I give someone wanting to get into war games? Well, just do it. I mean, I'm sure if you've got a local club near to you, I'm sure there is one within a reasonable distance. give them a ring, get round there, and I'm sure you can join in games until you've got your own figures with them. And certainly you can at our club. And then the main advice I would say would be, don't get anything too complicated initially. Stick to sort of fairly simple rules. There's various rules out there that are, I mean, this is a good example, Rebels and Patriots. You can try those. I find them quite easy to do. In fact, the series that Osprey do, there's another one, Pikeman's Lament. Obviously that's about the English Civil War period. Then we've got Lion Rampant, which is medieval and sort of Dark Age. Dux Ballorium, that's Arthurian wargaming rules, AD 367 to 793. There's even something completely different, the steampunk, if you're into steampunk. I've not played these actually yet. But the Osprey series of rules are actually, they're not complicated at all. They're actually a good introduction to wargaming, and I don't work for Osprey, I promise you, but I just think they do work quite well. These are the rules I'm playing a lot at the moment, Muskets and Tomahawks, and for me, I think they're a lovely set of rules. They're not too complicated at all, and they give a good representation of what would happen in that period. They're going to be doing other periods. I've basically used these for the American War of Independence, and it's also French and Indian Wars as well, although I haven't got many of those figures yet. But they're a good introduction to wargaming. But it's really what's good about these is that you don't need many figures at all. You can probably do it with 30, 40 figures, and you can get a good game out of that. If you want a slightly bigger sort of skirmish set, then Sharp Practice are very good. And that's what I would call a bigger skirmish. You could probably do 100 figures with that one, and maybe even more. So it depends on how. If you want to start with something with a small amount of figures, then pick Muskets and Tomahawks. The Sharp Practice, in fact, I quite like them, but they're a little bit more complex. And even now we have discussions and people interpret the rules differently. And that's, if you like, the only thing I don't like about them, that the rules can be misinterpreted quite easily and people play them different ways. I don't get that problem with Muskets and Tomahawks. If you want to play big battles, then recommend something like Black Powder, which are Warlord Games rules. We use those for big Napoleonic games, or American War of Independence, or American Civil War, and American War of Independence. Hail Caesar for the ancient periods. I've got a Roman army and a Dacian army, or any sort of barbarian army would do, so I use those a bit as well. And Pike and Shot for the English Civil War. I've got loads of other rules as well, but I don't use them as much, so I'm just showing you the ones I tend to use these days. So keep it simple. Simple set of rules, not too many figures needed. So yeah, so why did I start this channel? As I mentioned earlier, I started doing lawn bowls videos because I'm a qualified coach, and I started doing videos for new people. And then when COVID happened back in March or April, I found myself stuck at home, and I just bought a new set of rules, Muskets and Tomahawks. And I don't know about you, but when I get a new set of rules and I read them, it just goes straight over the top of my head. I used to be able to take it in, but these days I can't. I need to play a game and then they start to make some sort of sense. So I decided I would play some games solo at home, and while I was going to do that, I might as well video it and put it on YouTube so that other people can watch me play and make mistakes and find out about the rules. I did that. I did 2 games. I did one that was 3 videos long, another one that was 4, so they were quite long. But what I did find was when I put them online, I had a lot of help, a lot of people that played the rules that got back to me and said, oh, you did this wrong, that wrong, you know. And so I explained where I'd gone wrong, and I put it right the next time I played. And it was a good sort of, there's a bit of a learning curve with any rules, but I found that really, really helpful. And now I wouldn't say I'm an expert in Muskets and Tomahawks, but I do know the rules quite well. I can generally now play them without hardly any reference to the book at all. So that's why I started this channel. It was sort of a last minute thing. I didn't really think I'd keep it going, but I've actually enjoyed it. I've had a lot of very positive responses. Unfortunately, when I moved the videos from my Lawn Bowls channel to the dedicated Wargames hobby channel, I lost all the information on all the hits I'd had and all the, which was a great shame. There wasn't really an option of transferring that across to another channel without losing all that. I think there was one possibility you could do, but it was so complex it did my head in, so I decided no, I'd just delete them, which is a shame because a couple of the videos I'd done had a couple of thousand hits, and I'm sorry about those people that watched that and then subscribe to my bowls channel. But if you're watching, please delete it from that and come on back into this channel, and I'll stick this channel just to wargaming stuff. Right, last thing, because I'm waffling on a bit, as is my normal thing, where I see myself in 5-10 years time. Well, I've been playing Wargames now since the early 70s, and Wargames go through periods of, you get into a set of rules and you play them a couple of years, and then another set comes along, or better set, or you want to change, you do a different period. And so there's always change happening in Wargames, and I know over the next few years, I've got a couple of projects on at the moment. The first one is to do some 28mm Napoleonics, which I've never done before. And I'm doing some Austrians because simply no one else has done them at the club so far, so I thought I'd do something different. I've done one side of bolt action, I've done some German troops, but I haven't actually done the opposition, so I'm going to do some Americans to fight against them. And I'm just going to continue painting up. I've got a lot of American War of Independence troops, but I haven't got any really French and Indian wars. I've got some Indians, but I've just bought some French, some more. I've got some French Canadian militia, 2 packs of those, so that's 6 each, 2 units of 6. I've got a unit of 8 French Marines and an officer. Along with the Indians, that'll be enough to give a reasonable game of muskets and tomahawks, which my mates have got French and Indian wars, but I haven't, so I'll be doing that. Long term, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I mean, I think it depends what comes up. I might get back into the bigger games again, do more black powder possibly. I don't tend to buy many rules these days. I'm happy with the ones I've got. I have been playing a lot of Saga over the years, and I've got a lot of Dark Age armies, but this last year I've hardly played them. I just went off them a little bit. I wouldn't say I went off them, I just wanted a change. And I haven't been playing them much, but there's a new set out based on the Punic Wars, isn't there, called Saga Hannibal or whatever it's called. A couple of friends have bought them. I haven't yet because I haven't got an army that would fit into that period. I've got some early Imperial Romans, but they're too late for that period really. So I don't know. I might buy them. I might then do a Greek or a Carthaginian army. It's a possibility, but at the moment, because I've got loads of Saga stuff, I've got about 6 or 7 armies. If I want to do Saga, I've got plenty really. Do I want another period? I'm not sure. I haven't made my mind up about that yet, but no doubt I'll end up buying it eventually. There we are. That's what you do, isn't it? The club itself, because it's shut, well, it is and it isn't. It hasn't, where we used to play, in fact we were at the community centre in Farnborough for 40 years. Unfortunately the council have shut that, they closed it down, pulled it down, they're building a new sports centre nearby, and they're going to have some rooms for the community in there which are going to be very expensive. No doubt we can't go there. Well, in fact they're still not sure what they're doing, but basically our community centre was closed down, so we had to move, and we moved to a local church hall. And we were only there for about 6 months when all this COVID thing happened. And sadly, because quite understandably, the church's main concern are their parishioners, and they don't want other people coming into the church hall at the moment, so we can't go back there. Well into the new year, possibly even next summer. I'm not sure how quickly we'll get back in there, but it's not going to be any time soon. So what I did do at my club is I've managed to persuade the members of my committee of the bowling club that I bowl at. We've got a nice clubhouse that you can fit 3 or 4 games in quite comfortably. So we're hiring that out now twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. What we've done is we've split the clubhouse in half, and we put a block of tables and chairs 6 feet wide right down the middle. So we've got 2 pods which we can safely have either 2 games in there 1v1 or a 2v2 game, as long as the players use a big table and can sit on the corners, they can keep a safe distance away from each other. So we can use a maximum, they can have a maximum of 8 people playing in a game. That's because we've got 2 separate pods and they're spaced well apart. Otherwise it would have to be just 6, obviously, but we can get away with 2 times 4. We can't squeeze any more than that. We just don't feel it. We're not happy. We did a risk assessment on it, and we had a qualified risk assessor come along, and they said, yeah, you can safely play 2 halves of the clubhouse, split it into 2 and play 2 lots of 4. They're happy with that, so that's what we're doing. Because we've got about 40 members, we've decided to hire it twice a week, so a maximum of 16 people could play in 1 week. And we're seeing how that goes. It's only just started. We're getting on average about 6 people a night at the moment anyway. So we are meeting, but of course whether we can continue to do that remains to be seen, because there's things changing all the time. And if we go, at the moment we're level 1 around here, we're medium risk. But if we go up to high risk, and of course we'll have to stop doing it anyway. So, you know, we're in the hands of the government really. We're sticking strictly to what they advise, obviously. And we hope we can continue, but we'll have to see. So for the future, let's hope we can get back to what we love doing, playing games, getting some big games going where we can safely play together. And I hope that will happen very, very soon. Well, certainly sometime next year. So in the meantime, thanks for watching. I hope I haven't bored you. I've gone on a little bit. I'm prone to do that. I do apologise. That's me. But in the meantime, I hope you get to Wargame. I hope you stay safe, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.